Hello. It's the summer here. It's probably going to be the last really warm day. It's starting to feel a little bit like fall, and before you know it, it is going to be autumn. And so we wanted to do a summer tour here.
Here, get into the light.
So I thought we'd give you a little bit of an update on the progress that we've made and some of the stuff that we didn't make progress with. And you can see we have some boards here. We're doing some repair on the home, and we're going to be restaining this. This is Saunders' project, so that's one of the things that we're kind of working on.
So this is the old, and this is gonna be the new.
Yeah.
Well, this is a deck board, so it's not really, you can't really compare, but if you scrape the paint off, there's some really nice cedar that's below this. And then we could just restain it, and then it's gonna look like very similar color.
Most of the progress, though, has been in the landscape, so let's go take a little walk. So what's really nice about right now is that there's so much in bloom. And we did some planting in the landscape, not as much as we'd like, because we still haven't done the deer exclusion fence. We're hoping that's something that will happen in the fall. But we did plant some native plants in with our other native plants. You could see some of this cardinal flower coming up. Look at how beautiful that is. It's still in bloom. Our hummingbirds absolutely love this. So, and some of it's actually going to seed. And I think we actually have some more of this liatris down here. These white flowers, that's bone set right now. We have some asters. This is liatris, it's kind of at the end, but Joey and I planted probably like 80 of these around here, with white ones and purple ones. So they're all throughout, dotted throughout. So we really like this. This is a more naturalistic planting. So part of what we're gonna do is actually taking up some of this lawn. We actually just met with the turf grass guy at Cornell, and he was recommending that we do some, just like some different options instead of taking it all up, because he's like, you have a great lawn, which, you know, we do. You can see it's very lovely. It's been a lot of rain this year though, but it's been a lot of work in the sense of that every week we're out here mowing. You're out here mowing.
I'm half done mowing. That's why my fingers are so green.
But we are gonna be doing some interesting experiments here, because there's not much in experimentation in what we're about to do. So we haven't gotten to that yet, but that's gonna be a fall project. And we did make some progress on some bed planting. So this is one of the beds that we started to plant that I feel most proud of. We're spending most of our time planting in this bed. There is about 150 different species/varieties in this, and it's a very complex planting because we have herbaceous perennials, we have succulents, we have conifers, we have ericaceous plants, we have grasses. It's very complex, and it's bermed up. You could see that obviously kind of billows up in the center and then kind of whittles down and meets the grass down here. So the drier plants, like the rosemaries, the sedums, this woolly thyme, this artemisia, these hardy succulents, these sedums and sempervivums and things like that, this requires more dry habitat. So the stuff that is more dry land is up top. The things that need a little bit more water are on the way down. And I've even planted some under the shades of trees. So, you know, a heliobore, which is something like this, and this tree casts quite a bit of shade, even though this is south facing. So we could get away with planting something like this here. So I think this is the type of planting that I like the most. Some of this will start to spread out, like this is kinnikinick, bearberry, it's native, not often used in our landscape, and that will kind of spread out and fill up this area a little bit more.
So you're planting that all along the edge?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll just have to wait, but you could see, like, even this thyme, look at how it's spreading. It's spreading over the rocks.
Yeah, it's growing a lot.
Yeah, it's
been a lot of
cool.
rain too.
So a lot of this stuff you have to kind of imagine it in maybe 3 to 4 years, but I really love what we did here. This hot mess. This is a weedy bed. This will be another project for spring. I think we're going to have to shape it. And we kind of just tossed plants in here that we got from the meadow area that were like nursery escapees. And we kind of just tried to save them. We got a bunch of plants given to us and they just wound up in this bed. So we'll probably redo it. Oh, look, this is one of the pink buckwheats. They came up here.
I made it out here.
Yeah, Ruby Takan buckwheat. So that's one of the things that we accomplished this summer. This probably doesn't look like much to people, but this was an old nursery. We've done a lot of work on here to grade it, excavate it, cultipack. It's actually planted with oats.
This was completely filled with irrigation, metal sticks coming out of the ground.
Yeah, nursery
all kinds
material,
of
geotextile.
Geotextile underneath the ground. And we spent about 3 days with excavator help to try to get all of that out. We got most of it out.
Right, but we always constantly find stuff.
We still
here.
find stuff, and
Yeah.
we will always find
Like this,
stuff.
like this. You know, it's
Oh,
it's
there it
old
is.
geotextile material coming up from
Yeah.
the earth,
So
right?
we will always find little things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can never get rid of everything.
So, you know, we're turning this into a more native meadow, and this is a big experiment. A lot of things could go right, a lot of things could go wrong, but we just had a turf guy up here who said, you know, this is so great. He's like, this reminds me of some of the places in the Finger Lakes where they just have pea gravel and really nice, well-draining soil. So I think we feel blessed that they did quite a lot of geoengineering, I guess, of this habitat so that it's well-draining. And some people would be like, oh my God, I can't plant in this. It's so rocky. But this is actually the perfect kind of habitat for a meadow planting. So
what happened here a couple days ago was that we had buckwheat in here growing as a cover crop.
yeah,
And we let that go to flower, but before it went to seed, we had our farmer friend come over and disc all of it in.
yeah, for green manure.
There's a lot of stone in here, but now there's a lot more
Yeah.
dirt.
Now this is compacted down. When he first did the disking, it was definitely bouncier. The second round of buckwheat, like we felt that it was already a little bit more fertile. But again, you don't want anything too fertile when it comes to meadow, so we're not like super worried about that. Although our future plans are to have this area a little more fertile because we want to do fruit trees here and berries down there, and then the rest of it could go to high meadow. But this was a big chunk of our time, and that's for a future episode.
And this should be done now, because what's in the ground now is oats.
Oats, yeah. And I think
And
some of them are
we'll-
coming up.
Oh, really?
Right here.
Oh,
This is
Look at
oats.
that.
See this? I just pulled
Wow.
off the cotyledon, but like this is the oats already coming up.
well, that's quick. That's
Yep.
great.
Yeah, you can see all of
So-
it. See all of it?
You'll get to see more of that in a future episode, because
Yes.
it's too much to go into
Yeah.
for now. But
Too much, way too much. It was,
that was a lot of work. So we
A lot of
took
work.
all the invasive trees out. We had some of them chipped. We took all the dead trees out.
the other thing we kind of figured out, although we have left this area pretty much fallow, is Sonder built these really handy dandy, I don't know, what do you call them, structures
Yeah, just triangles.
to imagine where we would put a
Sticks.
future greenhouse. And you could see it, it's trapped in this goldenrod right here. He did take the scythe over there and cut up some of it, but we're leaving some of this obviously for pollinators. You could see how active they are right there.
Yeah, I just really wanted to get a sense of what kind of size greenhouse we would like, and also the placing. So what I just did is I built these old garden beds that we took out last year. I took the planks, de-nailed them, and put them back together as these triangles, so that now they act as like corner posts of a greenhouse.
Yeah.
They're the height that we're thinking of, and then the width and the length. So then we get to imagine what the size will be in the landscape.
I have one more thing to show up near the house, but let's go down here and then we'll finish up there.
All right.
Because I think you've done so much work in the forest, and we weren't even thinking about doing work down here. But Sandra got really ambitious, and we do need to prepare for the deer fence, which is going to, people have asked about the deer fence. It's a deer exclusion fence. Oh, that's the buckwheat.
Here's some buckwheat that survived.
Honestly, we were like, what's that smell? And this whole field was buckwheat, and it does have a really like dirty sock smell.
Yeah, it smells a little strange.
But the bees loved it. It was great bee forage. And it's a wonderful green manure, which green manure is just like you're taking vegetable matter and tilling it in and providing a little bit more nutrients for the soil beneath.
Right, so now we're closer to the driveway, and this whole area down here was covered with multiflora rose and honeysuckle, and we took all of that out. Oh, and actually, you could see them right there.
Oh, yeah.
I still need to burn those piles because you can't really throw that in the wood chipper. And then here, there used to be a lot of these a lot of these trees actually.
The arborvitaes.
Yeah, and we left a couple of them.
There was a whole row of them. It looked too unnatural.
But yeah, it really provided a privacy screening between the driveway and this area, so we decided to take them out because it would make the driveway part of the land again and not feel like such a separate
it feels more spacious
thing.
And the other thing we did is we had to take down a number of our trees, not only because they were dying, and this land had been clear cut at some point and tilled, and so there's no hills and valleys, there's no undulations in the landscape, there's nothing really interesting about it. So we just chopped and dropped them, and we had to clear a path for the deer exclusion fence. And people have asked about the deer exclusion fence, and the reality is the deer pressure is so high in upstate New York here that you get no recruitment or no regeneration in your forest. You just could see clear through because the deer eat everything. So what we're gonna do is experiment and expand the deer fence into the forest and experiment with what comes up and doing some enrichment planting as well.
Right, and now you're talking about the understory and the new trees that are sprouting up. So as soon as anything tries to grow, the deer go after it, and then it doesn't survive.
And I didn't think we were gonna plan on doing so much work down here, but you got started, and then it got me into it.
Well, the tricky thing is we need to find a straight line through a forest in order to put a fence in. So this was a bit of a process to figure out, where should we run it? Ideally, we run it as close to the road as we can, because then we can
conserve more area.
Yeah, conserve more area. So, I mean, you could see the amount of trees that are down here.
Right.
I think they cut about 150 dead ash trees down, and some of them were really big.
And you could see, we just lined it so we could show people where you could possibly walk. And then that would allow more regeneration. And one of the things that Mike, our forester, who you might have seen on this channel, one of the words of advice that he gave us was that it's okay if you're dragging some of the wood in the forest, because you need to scuff it up a little bit, because that's where seedlings start to recruit. And so we started to become aware of it, that it's okay to actually walk in an area, scuff it up, drop some trees, pull them through. And you see things like this, like nuts and seeds and berries and things like that. This is the stuff that's going to be able to grow in here when we exclude the deer. And we're not excluding the deer from all of the land. They'll have still places to go.
Oh, there'll be enough for them to go.
Yeah, exactly. But we've seen experiments in other areas. And
Smith Woods.
Yeah, Smith Woods. We've seen Cornell University. And it's really inspiring to us to see that we could get herbaceous perennials and a shrub layer back in like almost no time at all. So we have high hopes for us. And then we started making these paths along the fence line. Oh, here's one of those, here's some of the hickories. So look at some of these hickories. We'll collect these. It's a really good hickory year. We have a lot of shagbark hickory. I'm gonna take these home. And we wanted to have paths that lead to our great white oak.
Right, so initially we weren't thinking of enclosing this area in the deer fence until we found this. And that made it really worth it. So we started to do a lot of work in this area.
You started to do a lot of work in this area.
Well, and you as well.
And you've done it's just amazing.
I made some art pieces here too. You might see some weird growth on that tree.
Yeah.
That's strange, or something balancing.
Yeah, we're experimenting.
Yeah, there's just these massive stumps that could be great, like plateaus for maybe a pot could sit down there with a plant in it or something.
Yeah, he started making some sculptures.
Or
and
a stone can lay on it,
I'm
become
wondering
a table.
where my glove went, because I was actually throwing these things around the edge, and
logs.
then there was a wasp nest, and I got into it, and it was attacking me on my glove, and I threw the glove.
And you got stung on
I got
your
stung,
head, right?
and I don't know where my glove is, so I'm missing one glove.
Yeah. So one of the foresters, or one of the tree guys, discovered a wasp's nest in here. So yeah, stay away from that next time.
Yeah, and then the other thing that we're doing
we could walk that way
is
too.
what?
We could walk that way too.
Oh, I was gonna go out to the wood.
Oh,
Wanna go
the
out this way?
firewood?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the other thing that we're doing, oh my God, look at all these hickory nuts. This one looks bad though. The other thing that we did is that, oh God, I'm getting distracted with these hickory nuts. Oh,
Okay,
so
cut to the firewood.
Yeah, cut through the firewood.
Okay, we arrived at the firewood, but a lot of these trees also got chipped up, and we used that to sort of level out this area and just provide like a nice cover for future plants to grow in.
And then this is our
So-
firewood that we started to cut.
Should we say that part of the reason why we cut the firewood is for aesthetics? Or is that ridiculous?
Well, I don't think we're gonna use all of this firewood, and
But it's a great backup to have.
and part of it, as we started to do it, it was like, wow, this is so beautiful.
Yeah.
It looks like an art piece. And there's no way we're going to use all this firewood. So I think it's going to be aesthetic more than it is going to be functional
Yeah.
for us.
I mean, there's so much firewood after cutting all those trees that it's just
Yeah.
like, what are you gonna do? Just have it rot? There's so much trees in there still that
Yeah.
can provide like nutrients to the soil.
And we do use this. We
Part
just
of
got a
it,
fire
yeah.
pit, and we do have a fireplace in the house. So,
Yeah.
you know, we are going to use some of it, but not nearly this much.
So yeah, we just stacked it on some concrete blocks and then some steel so that it doesn't rot. So hopefully this will stay here for a long time.
And
And it's under a roof, so.
And I have two more things to share with folks, but it's up here. It's two garden things.
Oh, okay. Careful, there's stumps everywhere. Oh, so another thing we did with these invasive trees is that we don't want them to grow back. And pulling them out by the roots is going to be too much work for what we're doing down here. We don't really care. Around the house, maybe. Let's pull them out by the roots. But down here, we don't really care. So we just drilled holes in them and put some Roundup in there.
Very little.
Very little bit. And it does the job, and it stays very confined to that area.
Yeah, and
So
that's
it
probably the only time we'll be using Roundup, and we have to be very careful with it because we don't want it to get into the environment. But those roots are too big to pick up unless you had like a proper excavator, and you really want to get all the root. And that is one of the most efficient ways to do it. Some people have shared like vinegar solutions, and that could work probably with something that's really young, but by that time it's easier just to rip the young ones out. But something that's more established like that is going to be a lot more challenging.
Yeah, so now that all these trees are gone, you could really look up and see like the future meadow.
It still looks a little bushy in some areas because that's where the ponds are. And that's one thing that we haven't gotten to this summer. It wasn't our plan to get to it this summer. We'd probably start landscaping the ponds next year. So that's a 2022 thing. I think food production is gonna start in 2022 and landscaping the ponds, that's a next year thing.
Oh, one more thing. We want to get rid of some of this goldenrod because when we're trying to plant a meadow, we don't want all this goldenrod seed to come in and take its place. So I'm trying to take this down. You can see these two paths here. I've done this with a scythe, and that was quite successful. Another method that we've tried was using a hedge trimmer, surprisingly enough, and that was also quite successful. And you mentioned, Summer, that there's two types of goldenrod.
Yes.
This one I left because it's less.
No, that one's still Canada goldenrod.
Oh, okay.
This one you left.
Oh, that one. Yeah, you're right.
See, it has
It
this
looks
like,
different.
You'll notice that there's less of this in the landscape. It's less it's not aggressive, but the Canada goldenrod is more aggressive. Now, don't get me wrong. Goldenrod here is a very important plant in the ecosystem, but we don't want all goldenrod. And the thing with Canada goldenrod is that it's allelopathic, which means it actually sends out chemicals so that very few other plants could actually grow with it.
Yeah.
So it creates a bit of a monoculture. But this one, you see here, another little clump of it. You can see how distinct it is because it has a little bit more of a pom-pom.
Yeah. You can hear the bees when you get close.
Oh, yeah.
So much activity.
I mean, if you really look at a goldenrod flower, you will see so much insect life. So we do want to keep some of it, but
there's another whole field of it back there.
It's going to get into our field no matter what.
Another reason why we can't just send a mower in here is because there might be nursery materials in there, like big stones or metal sticks or who knows what. So.
Oh, I saw these white flowered trees in there that I don't know what they are either. And I think they're back there. Oh, you see that one? I have to get a closer look, but I don't want to traipse back there into the weeds and tickville. So, yeah, so that's kind of interesting.
You think it's like a fruit tree?
No, I think it's actually some ornamental that he probably planted. It probably gets a fruit, but I don't know if it's an edible fruit. Okay, so this is one of the blue spruce that we pruned because there's a lot of dead growth on one side and not the other. Sonder didn't really like my clipping, but I had to clip it far back because it was all dead here and alive there and it would have looked odd. So what was our solution? Our solution was to put some shade-tolerant shrubs underneath that will grow just about this height. So we have a viburnum. We have something that is totally underutilized in the landscape, mountain laurel. This is the state flower of my home state of Pennsylvania. I very rarely see this in landscapes. There's so many beautiful cultivars.
And it's growing already. Like I believe this is all new.
And you know what?
Because it's super green. It was greener than that
it's
even.
Native and it's a deer resistant. And a lot of the ones that you see in like if you go out in the wild are big. They're like rhododendrons. But the ones for homes are much smaller. So this might grow about 6 feet tall, and they grow some that are smaller too. And then we got some rhododendrons, speaking of that. And then we got a hydrangea over there, which is looking a little limp because he's got the sun on it.
Well, he's always in need for water.
He's always in the need for water, and that one that we got was really tossed around in the mail, and so the roots were all
it's gonna take a little while to establish for that one.
This garden bed, we kind of have left it. It's kind of doing its own thing right now. I found out that this spirea was a summer blooming spirea, so the best time to cut it back is in the spring. So I'm gonna have to wait to the spring and I'm gonna do a really hard cut on it.
That has grown a lot too.
Yes, this Pinus mugo, it's It's massive.
It went from really flat to
Yeah.
really popping up.
And I even clipped off some of the tops, so it looks great. And I want to cut back that spirea so it has more space to grow. Then you may remember one of the first gardens that we planted, and excuse me because this still looks like a work area, is this shade bed. And look how it's filled in. I love this. This was completely bare. And you see this Cornus canadensis, you see all these tiarellas and heucherellas and heucheras. Some of them got a little sun scorched, you could see here. This got a lot more sun than I thought it would.
Yeah, because you thought this would be a shade garden, but most of the time, whoa, there's a wheelbarrow. Most of the time, it's got to have some sunlight.
It gets a really beautiful morning sun, and then I think it just still gets some south light. It's pretty intense. But what's really grown really well are these geraniums. I mean, I think this is Sambor, geranium Sambor, and then look at this purple ghost. This was a tiny little insignificant plant when I planted it, which it's amazing. We got some of the Regersias back there, which will grow taller, and some of those Actias with the dark leaves. Gorgeous. This is
put another one of these in.
Another mountain laurel with some red stems. So beautiful.
So that will get about this tall, you'd say.
This will get about 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
3 to 4 feet tall.
This is perfect in this corner to fill that gap near the tree.
And the other things you're probably not seeing here are some of the bulbs that will come up in the spring. And I've actually planted some of our native orchids and some pretty interesting plants, golden seal and things like that. And I've planted quite a bit of them underneath these leaves here. And you can see they're growing really well. This is the painted lady fern. There are some things that I noticed in the back towards the house that get a little sun scorched, but they're coming up now later in the season. So there's a lot of things that we learned as we're doing this planting.
This one's not doing so hot.
Well, that is, the Dicentra was fine. I'm not sure what happened to that Dicentra, but it will come back because it's a perennial. And you'll see the Tiarella in the middle. That's our native foam flower. Nope, the one in the middle.
That?
Yep. You can see it got eaten around the edges by something, but that is fine. And that Dicentra, that's what the other Dicentra looked like. That one that you just first pointed to. And yeah, it got eaten by something, but it doesn't matter. It flowered, it expanded, and it will come back next spring.
Okay.
And then we have plenty of plants that we're going to be planting probably within the next couple weeks in this area. And I got this from Rare Roots, which is, I really love this company. This is an incredible company. They have great selection. I love how they pack their plants, and I always get such great plants from them. And we went also to some of our local Baker's Acres, and these plants may look like they're at the tail end, but
Mike.
But these are some of the things that we're going to plant up in here, and we're excited about that. So a lot of work that's going to continue till the end through summer and fall.
So this is going to be a garden bed. You can kind of see those two paths coming together there. But then as you walk towards the house, you're going to see
all garden.
This huge garden, and
all garden, all the time.
Putting Summer Rain in charge of the planting, this will fill up in no time.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna need so many plants for this. And then we did some experiments with alternative lawn. And this is one of our experiments. You can see it's primarily clover, but it's got some, lawn daisies in, and this is some type of brassica. There's some grass in here. There's some Johnny jump ups, those purple little violet face ones right here. So,
yeah, what are those orange flowers that first came up?
Poppies. So we had a lot of poppies in here too, which was a little too intense for us, but some people really love them. Here's one coming up right here.
Ooh.
It's not
orange.
Yeah, it's bright orange. But so yeah, we're kind of experimenting with how alternative lawn works, and if we could grow a native lawn. We're going to be doing more experiments like that throughout the fall. And then you may remember that I was really talking bad about like our willow that was here. We had to get rid of it, so what did we do? We shovel pruned it.
Well, when the excavator was here to figure out the meadow area, we had a little to-do list. We had a little to-do list on the side to also do some things around the house. And one of them was, let's take out this willow tree by the root, because if you leave the roots, it will come back, right?
Yeah.
So we dug deep and we got most of it out. And then we got this beautiful magnolia tree to put in its place. Okay, I'm done planting this magnolia tree. So I saw that it was leaning slightly to the left. So that's why I planted it leaning this way, because the sun arcs across the sky over here. So hopefully it will grow more straight that way. I made sure that the soil at the actual plant is a little bit above the surface. So it's like slightly on its own hill. And then as it grows, we can expand this tree circle here. But for now, we'll keep it nice and small.
Yeah, so this is a Magnolia Ann. It will have pink blooms, and it primarily grows in the spring, but we did get it from a nursery and it had one bloom on it, which is now...
Which is gone. And some of the leaves are turning yellow, which is, it's going to be fall. So.
This is deciduous. It will lose its leaves, and it won't grow pretty much more than 10 feet tall. And, you know, and that's what we want. It's gonna be shrubby and like kind of rounded, but the willow was like getting into here. It was reverting back to green. It was twisty on one side. So we want something that's a little bit more manageable. And we will actually be, I didn't mention this to you, we will be putting bulbs in this lawn, but they're gonna be pinks and white bulbs.
Ah, to match the color.
Yeah, to match the color.
So what's the timing on that? They will come up first, and then the magnolia will bloom in the
Magnolia
spring.
blooms in spring as well. So many of the bulbs will probably come up slightly before the magnolia, but will overlap with the magnolia.
So the color is gonna transition into the tree,
yeah.
which is kind of cool.
Whites and pinks. You know, that's a crab apple that's not looking so good because it got really hit by gypsy moths, but that's white and pink. And then we have some cornus that have whitish pink blooms. So the theme will kind of carry throughout. So we're doing a lot of work. There's probably more that I could show you, but I think we'll leave it there. It's already a lot, but fall is gonna be even bigger projects, believe it or not. If you'd like to see more of these videos, give it a thumbs up, and we'd appreciate you subscribe to the channel. We're committing 10% of our Google AdSense revenue back into the Finger Lakes community here, which will be matched by our partners Espoma Organic, which also have ties to this region. In the meantime, we'll see you in the next video.